When I was a young child growing up in Australia, for a year or two I was part of a junior surf lifesavers program or club. Every weekend, my family and I would head down to the beach in typical Aussie fashion, and I learned how to swim and be safe near the ocean. The other kids and I were, to my memory, mainly taught these skills through games, tug of war and relay races as the sand kicked up under our feet, the waves roared in the background, and each of our teams vied for victory. This flashback came to me this week as we find ourselves in Torah as in life, exactly where we need to be, as we chant the Song of the Sea and celebrate Shabbat Shira. It is the ultimate vying, the ultimate power struggle, as the Israelites stand at a very different shore, the shores of the Red Sea. One god chases behind them as the Egyptian Pharaoh considered divine, and his chariots pursued them. Another god, the God of Israel, was before the Israelites as they faced a choice as to whether to plunge into uncharted waters, praying that the waters would part as promised. Ultimately, the sea splits, the Israelites cross, and they famously proclaim, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. We often interpret this as, who is like you, Adonai, meaning there is nothing and no one who can compare to the eternal, the one true God of Israel. However, if we are to translate literally the word elim, it's in the plural. So this verse might more accurately be rendered as, who is like you among the gods? Hold on, we might be thinking. Aren't we as Jews monotheists? Don't we only have one God? Isn't that kind of the whole point, kind of what separated us from other peoples during ancient times? Indeed, yes it was. Period. However, our ancestors were fully aware that other groups and nations had their own deities to believe in and pray to. In ancient times, the success of these nations was a direct reflection of the efficacy of these prayers and subsequently the success of their particular god. In other words, you not only wanted, but you needed to win, because it clearly proved that your god was superior. This led to tension and competition between nations because power was not just for the sake of, let's say, conquering land or territory. It was also a battle for divine favor, and therefore, who held the claim to being right and being just in their triumph. This tug-of-war of power, this uncertainty, this sense of standing on a precipice has, perhaps for obvious reasons, felt poignant this week. From tax tariffs to Gaza to immigration, power is no doubt being rethought and redistributed, a bit like a game. For some of us, we may have lost faith in what this new world is and what it could be. Others might have regained faith they abandoned long ago. Yet others may feel all-consumed, paralyzed by the whiplash that seems to ping across our phones every other hour nowadays. Unsurprisingly, our sages have their own perspective to offer. The Kedushat Levi, a classic 16th century Hasidic text, will teach us that there are two kinds of faith, which I believe we can extrapolate as two different kinds of power in turn. The first he designates as emunah shlema, a complete, absolute, unbreakable faith. It is premised on the notion that one believes entirely and without reservation in the God of our ancestors and reveres and loves this same God. If I was going to look at this through the lens of power, I'd posit this equates to soft diplomacy, the efforts that go on consistently and behind the scenes, the back-channel conversations behind closed doors or in hushed hallways that we, the public, rarely get to hear about. The advantage of it is that it's reliable and consistent. Whoever wields this kind of power might be thought of as someone who is always there, exactly when you need them. It's the quiet kind of influence that keeps the calm and serves as the reliable, steady hand. This brings us to the second kind of faith outlined by the Kedushat Levi. He describes it not as self-generated, but faith that is instilled as the result of experiencing or witnessing mind-boggling events, like miracles. This makes the splitting of the Red Sea the perfect example. If you needed any reason to believe any more proof of God's presence, then surely this is it. I would think of this in our terms as hard power. The kind that is bold, that doesn't care what anyone else thinks. It might feel like a bulldozer, like the waves of the sea crashing down over anyone and anything that stands in the way. Whoever uses power in such a way might be thought of as pushy, even brazenly so. But there's almost no doubt, however you feel, that it is effective. It gets stuff done. I wonder if the Kedushat Levi is trying to teach us that, like all kinds of faith, all kinds of power are present in our world, and perhaps even necessary. We need the type of faith that grounds us firmly, the kind of power that keeps our heads on our shoulders, and we need the type of faith that makes us see marvels, the kind of power that will move mountains and make things happen. That being said, the Kedushat Levi concludes that Emunah Shlema is more enduring, since he understands it to be the kind of faith that stays with us once the shine of the signs and wonders has worn off. What we can acknowledge in the here and now is that what feels so destabilizing is not knowing which one we're going to get at any given time, or not knowing what the right answers might be, if any exist at all. I'm just a rabbi, not a politician or a policy expert, so who's to say what comes next or what's truly best? Only God knows that. I just know that I'm trying to have a little faith. So what might give us faith, we might ask, as our current circumstances require us to take a leap of faith? As is our theme this Shabbat Shira, it is a grounding in gratitude, and in particular, gratitude for that which we have control, have some semblance of power over in our own lives. We can be grateful for the love of our families, for the embrace of friends, for the comfort of community, for the confidence of being Jewish, and yes, for the good fortune of being here in Canada too. We can be grateful for our Jewish ethics and morals and values which give us the wisdom to follow paths of righteousness and which grant us another kind of power. Nachshon waded into waters until they almost filled his nose, maintaining his faith that God would not let him down. Miriam and the women came dancing afterwards, timbrels in hand, in their creative expression of gratitude for their freedom. Holding those images, the final thing I'm grateful for is the power of our tradition gives us to take a step back and say, Mi kamocha ba'ilim Adonai. Our Torah teaches us this Shabbat Shira that there are infinite paths to and many types of faith and power. Lest we risk drowning, may we harness our tradition to imagine differently and imagine better. Shabbat Shalom.